Welcome to today's talk about helping children during COVID-19. This is part of a special series, Timely Tips for Families, that I created. My name is Regina DeMeo, and I'm a family law attorney in Maryland and DC. I've been practicing for over 20 years, and the past 5 years, I've also had the privilege of being appointed by the court as special counsel for children. And today, I'm very excited to have Dr. Mindy Thiel, who works for Chesapeake Associates in Kensington, and she has worked extensively with children over the past decade. Thanks so much for being here, Mindy.
Thank you for this opportunity, Regina.
Absolutely. So one of the burning questions I think a lot of parents have is, how has COVID-19 impacted your clients that are children?
Well, the COVID-19 pandemic has imposed dramatic alterations in our everyday lives. It has imposed a lot of uncertainty, which understandably creates a lot of stress for children and adults. And what's even more difficult is that we are uncertain of what is to come. What are the changes that are going to happen next week, next month, next year as a result of COVID-19? Children in this generation are experiencing something that no other generation has experienced before, and that is learning exclusively online. And it's not just learning online, it's piano lessons online, karate online, religious worship online, birthday parties online. And while many children are adept and adapting to these new online forums, it still creates a longing for the interactions and stimuli that they had pre-pandemic. Most kids miss school. They miss their friends. They miss birthday parties in person. They miss going to the playground and being able to play on playground equipment. And for a lot of children, these are their coping skills. These are a form of their own self-care. And not being able to have that right now naturally creates more anxiety and worry and even fear in some of them. So it's important to keep in mind that while we are still experiencing great changes, that this is also can be an opportunity to point out to your child what they have accomplished, how incredible and how resilient they are and strong for managing this. And I also encourage families to do something different, do something new. Start playing a new game, start a new hobby, take a different route on your walk, create a TikTok video. Do something that you wouldn't normally do, and again, embrace this as an opportunity.
That makes sense. So in terms of being able to do a telehealth call with children, what would you say is the ideal age for children to be able to do that with you?
Really, any age, Regina. My colleagues and I have been pleasantly surprised with how adept children are with technology and this forum. And certainly online schooling helps. Kids are now even more familiar with Zoom than I ever was and are showing me new features of Zoom. And it creates, again, a new opportunity for them to be able to explore their feelings on their turf, in their milieu. I've had several sessions with kids where I've been introduced to their pets, to their stuffed animals, to their rooms. I think that kids actually get a sense of comfort, and it helps build the relationship with the child and the therapist to be able to see them at their own home. At the same time, younger children naturally have lower attention spans. So particularly preschool age children, we have had to adapt. We can adapt by bringing more materials, asking parents to have more materials readily available. Also, even shortening sessions if it seems like that's more appropriate for younger children. But the vast majority of our clients have been able to engage adults and children.
Wow, that's great.
Yes.
What is the ideal way for parents that might be contemplating a separation or divorce? What would be the ideal way for them to tell the children about that?
First of all, it's really important to recognize that kids are going to have mixed feelings, multiple feelings at the same time that might change throughout the divorce and separation process. Children oftentimes experience sadness. Divorce is a great loss for them. Worry about themselves, worry about their parents, anger, frustration. Also, kids frequently experience guilt. They blame the divorce on themselves. What if I had done something differently? Why couldn't I stop my parents from divorcing? Children can be acutely aware of the differences that their parents are experiencing and the conflict in the home. And some children even experience a sense of relief when the divorce is announced. Relief in the sense that they do not want their parents to fight anymore. They do not want any more yelling and arguing in the house. So it's important to keep in mind that what your child feels today and what their initial reaction is might not be their reaction 1 week or 1 year down the road, that their reactions can change. Also, not to overly question them about their feelings. Give them some time to process it. Revisit it regularly, but don't revisit it 24/7 with them. Ideally, parents would sit down together and have the divorce conversation with kids together, have similar messages and similar schedules that they have worked out beforehand. Perhaps parents would benefit from meeting with a professional, just the two of them and the professional, not with the children beforehand, to work out some of these details, to prepare and even rehearse some of the things that they might say, to consider different reactions that kids could have. Some kids pretend to be completely unaware of what this conversation, the details that are being shared with them. Some kids may cry, some kids may have a tantrum. So to prepare for all of that together ahead of time is ideal. Also, it's really, really, again, important to emphasize that it is not their fault. That you as a couple didn't work out doesn't mean that you as a parent won't work out. This is not anything that the child should be blamed for.
That makes sense. What would be some clues that parents need to be aware of, and if their children aren't adapting well to the news?
Well, research highlights two kinds of ways of processing information and feelings and changes. The first way that people cope is negatively is seen in externalized behaviors. And those are kind of the more outward, obvious things that children are experiencing. Things like oppositional behaviors, poor performance in school, refusing to do things, fighting with siblings, fighting with parents, fighting with peers. And then there are internal signs, feelings, internalized feelings that anyone can experience. And this, unfortunately, oftentimes can be undetected because children preserve these feelings. They keep them hidden inside, but they might be feelings of depression or anxiety or fear or even confusion and concern. So it's, again, good to check in with kids to gauge how they're feeling, but also to possibly engage a professional to let them do the surveying, them do the assessment. Children a lot of times will tell me more than what they will share with their mother or their father, or their mother or their mother, or their father or their father, because they do it as a way of self-preservation, but also out of love and out of protecting their own parent. They do not want to burden their parent with their internalized feelings. And so they do it as a way of protecting their parent from that pain that they're going through. So having an objective third party like a counselor or a therapist and a safe space for a child to be able to process this, their feelings, can be incredibly beneficial for them. So yes, be wary of the signs, the internalized signs that maybe you don't see.
And do you think children understand the concept of confidentiality with you?
Generally they do. Yeah, generally they do.
how do you help children deal with different parenting styles? I mean, when they're in one household, they somehow manage, but when you go to two different households and things are one way at mom's house and a different way at dad's house, I think that can be kind of confusing for a child.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I liken it as akin to your second grade and your fourth grade teacher. That the rules, the routines, the privileges that you get in at one classroom might be different than another classroom, but we still must respect and obey that teacher's wishes and that teacher's norms. And so, yes, this is something that many children experience even pre-divorce, but even more so post-divorce. Ideally, co-parenting, which is parents communicating positively, working together towards common goals for their children on a regular basis, would be what we strive for. But sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes a model called parallel parenting is what exes have to employ. And that goes back to that analogy that I gave about the second grade and fourth grade teacher, that it's still important to respect and not undermine the other parent's rules and norms. Even more importantly, it's important to impart on the child that even though there are differences, that they still absolutely must adhere to their mother or their father's household rules.
One thing that I have found surprising, not just professionally, but personally, is that as families change, someone gets remarried, there's more children at another house, right? The relationship between the two parents can change. Do you have tips for like how you would explain that to a child, that all of a sudden the parents got along during the divorce, but now that someone's remarried and has kids, they can't even talk?
Absolutely. Oftentimes, the introduction of any new family member is going to shift norms, shift expectations, shift roles, and shift dynamics. And that can be hard for certainly a child to adjust to. Keep in mind, Regina, that even years after a divorce, when you ask a child, when I ask a child, and I know you've done this as well but in your best interest attorney work, if they still have a deep down desire for their parents to reconcile, most kids say yes. Even years, even in hindsight, and even if they've adjusted well, they still have that desire. And the introduction of a step parent ultimately symbolizes the end of that, end of their parents' marriage again. They certainly are aware their parents aren't together, but that adds an added imposition and an added dynamic to the family. As well-meaning and as caring as a step parent can be, it can create a lot of stress for a child, and also for the parent who's fallen in love again, who has this second opportunity at love and marriage. And so it is incredibly important that you seek the assistance again of a professional or a third party if you're having these growing pains. And I think it's even more important to look at this as at therapy in general as an indication, not that something is wrong with your family, but something is actually right with your family. And you want to fix what's right with that family. You want to help your family grow and develop. You care so much about the feelings and thoughts of the people in your family that you are making efforts and taking time to try to engage them and listen to them and learn new strategies for how things can get better. So again, therapy in any context should be seen as a growth opportunity.
What about in those high conflict divorces that we've had to deal with? Like what do you work on with the children to help, I don't know, have some coping mechanisms while they're seeing their two parents try to like kill each other?
It's really important that kids stay out of the middle of the conflict. I start with that. I validate how confused they are. I validate how each parent's differing opinions, differing rules and norms have pros and cons, because that's really essentially the thoughts and feelings that the child is struggling with as well, trying to reconcile those. I also might refer their parents to professionals themselves, their own individual therapists or a parenting coordinator, or even a very skilled family therapist who can manage a high conflict case, who can manage two parents and try to model for them parallel and co-parenting models.
Oh, that makes sense. So if people wanted to contact you and ask for further information, what's the best way to do that?
The best way to contact me is through email. My email is chescounseling@aol.com. That's chesscounseling@aol.com. You can also reach me by telephone, 301-231-9001, extension 1.
Great. Thanks so much, Mindy.
Thank you, Regina. This has been a wonderful opportunity to talk about some really important issues.
Absolutely. So all of you that tuned in, thanks so much for checking in with us, and I hope you stay well and stay safe. Thanks so much, Mindy.
Oh, thank you, Regina. I look forward to seeing this on your website, and I, again, with your permission, hopefully can send a link to mine as well.
Absolutely. Take care.